In this PowerPoint, we're going to talk about the different federal, state, and miscellaneous agencies. You'll deal with some of these throughout your career. There are more agencies than this. These are just the key ones. And you'll develop relationships with them, and you might find them very useful. Whether they're at the federal level or the state level, often you will find that they're quite easy to deal with. You can contact somebody, get information you need, get assistance on a project or a program. In water, most of us help each other quite a bit, and you'll find that that holds true through the federal, state, and miscellaneous agencies that we're going to talk about. We like to think of water as a local issue, and it is, but you'll still deal with state and federal agencies. The Army Corps of Engineers is responsible primarily for dams and levees. They're one of the largest bureaucracies in the world, let alone our own federal government. The EPA, we all know from the WaterSense brand, but they do set a lot of regulations, including drinking water standards. The Bureau of Reclamation is a division of the U.S. Department of the Interior, and they are particularly helpful in grants. They offer a lot of grants for water conservation projects, both big and small. The National Marine Fisheries is responsible for the waters off the coast. There's the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Those of you who are doing projects in areas that might be mitigated or wildlife habitats will deal with them. The U.S. Geological Survey is a wealth of information. If you've never looked at their website, do look at the USGS website. I've never dealt with them in person, but I have used a lot of their information in lectures, but also in my day-to-day job duties. And then there's FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. If there's a nationally declared disaster, then FEMA will step in and provide assistance. They are remarkably easy to work with, and they're generally pretty well prepared. So it's good to know at least some of your federal agencies, because you'll be surprised how often you come into contact with them in your career. Then there's the California agencies, and these are the ones that you will use more often than federal. Sometimes they mirror one another. And by that I mean you have an EPA at the federal level, but you also have a Cal EPA. You have a FEMA at the federal level, but you also have a California EMA, or Emergency Management Agency. The Department of Water Resources is at the top of our list, and they do the California Water Action Plan. Sometimes they have grants, sometimes they have bonds. They're pretty easy to deal with. They did set the drought regulations through the State Water Resources Control Board, so you might have occasion to deal with them. There's the California Public Utilities Commission, which generally just manages investor-owned water utilities, which are privately owned water utilities. They just call them investor-owned for a nicer name. There's the State Water Resources Control Board. They set the majority of the regulations. I've dealt with them a fair amount of time. They often have a very good website. There's the California Marine Fisheries, which is the sister agency, I guess, to the federal one. There's Cal EPA. Then there's California Fish and Game. And those all have to do, they're just the equivalents of the federal agency, but at the state level. And then there's the Cal Emergency Management Agency. If there's a federal disaster, generally there's also going to be a California disaster, and both of those agencies will often work together to provide assistance. Something else you should think about when you're looking at all these agencies, including the ones on the next page, is they're also very good sources for jobs. You know, you don't have to just work for a small district like I do, or a city. These people also all employ a variety of water use efficiency coordinators, consultants, specialists, but there are other careers that are also available to you within these areas. So I definitely would suggest that you take a look at them also. These are other agencies that you will deal with throughout your career, and they can often provide very, very valuable information and resources for you. Pretty much, in my opinion, more than the state and federal agencies, mostly because they're more local. So the first one I want to talk about is the California Water Efficiency Partnership. This is often called CalWEP, also Cal WEP. And really, their mission is to advance urban water management through member-driven programs. So it's basically water professionals like yourself who get together on a quarterly basis. They have day-long meetings, they learn from one another, and then they help sponsor programs that they think are valuable. They also have a pretty good website where you can get quite a bit of information from them. So they're a pretty nice agency to get familiar with. Then there's the Alliance for Water Efficiency. So they're a stakeholder-based organization. They're a nonprofit, and they're dedicated to the efficient and sustainable use of water. They used to be known as the CUWCC, or California Urban Water Conservation Council. That was done away with, and this was the organization that was born from that. They do a lot of research studies. So that is really helpful if you're going to start a program. They also have a wealth of information as far as ordinances across the state, contingency plans across the state. So take a look at their website as well. Then there's the Association of California Water Agencies. And they are a nonprofit association of public water agencies. They have more than 430 members. Altogether, those members together supply about 90% of the water deliveries throughout California. They are an extremely powerful lobbying organization, and they do a lot with legislation. Well worth it to check out their website. The last one I want to talk to you about, and I touched on it briefly in our first class meeting so long ago, is the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. They're the wholesaler for imported water from the Colorado River Aqueduct and from the Delta. Now, they own the Colorado River Aqueduct because they built it, and they supply water to anywhere between 19 and 20 million people. Indirectly, they're an indirect organization. They have no retail customers. Again, they're a wholesaler. So they're a very powerful organization. They also have a lot of good programs and projects. They're powerful enough that I thought I should show you how they're organized. And I did show this briefly in the first class, but nobody can remember that far back. So you have MET at the top. They're either called MWD or MET, and they're comprised of 26 member agencies. I listed a few of them on here, like Western Municipal Water District, Eastern, City of Pasadena. These are the original group of agencies when they built the Colorado River Aqueduct. But under those agencies are what's called sub-agencies. So if you look at the Western tag, you will see that Jurupa Community Services District is underneath that. City of Riverside is under that. City of Corona. Each of the larger agencies generally has 8 smaller sub-agencies underneath them. So you can see that they're pretty powerful, because if you're buying imported water from any source, it's going to have to come through your agency and the wholesaler, which is Metropolitan. So just to clarify that a little bit further, I worked at the City of Corona. In City of Corona, we had about 20% imported water. We bought that imported water from Western Municipal Water District. They bought it from Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. Part of what adds to the cost of imported water is that everybody gets a cut along the way up. But no agency or sub-agency is big enough to have the capital to import water on their own. You almost have to go through a wholesaling agency. Metropolitan employs a tremendous amount of people. They have very, very good benefits, and people typically go there and never leave there. I've only known 2 people in my entire career who left there, and they left because they were bored. People tend to get pigeonholed, and there's not necessarily a lot of upward movement. Their employees stay so long that you're considered a junior person if you've only been there 20 years. So people often start their careers there and then end their careers there. Anyway, these are just a few of the important agencies, either at the federal, state, or local level, that you might want to be aware of.